I wanted to talk to you guys. I think we're going to manage not to overlap too much with our previous panel. We have a couple good things, fun things to talk about, I think. One is what is your ideal traits that you're looking for? What are the ideal traits or trait you're looking for in building a team, building a marketing team? Maybe we could start there. And I don't know who wants to start there, but let's go with Chris. Let's take Christy.
First of all, hello to everybody. Nice to see you all. For me, I think it's two things. One is just kind of general energy, so energy and love of what they do. And then I think second of all is just kind of diversity of the team. So diversity in terms of background, approach, opinions, skill set. So not necessarily the traditional kind of definition of diversity, but people bringing a number of really different perspectives to the conversation. I find generally kind of create better ideas, better products, better programs, better marketing plans, all of those things.
Penny?
So having grown up as an agency brat where it's all about teamwork, what I value most, I think, is passion, commitment, collaboration. We used to say, I don't care who you are, I don't care what your title is, I don't care what your grade level is, it doesn't matter. We're all here as one unified team to get to the best ideas or to solve a key business problem or to win. So I think that fostering that sense of like we're all in it together and everybody subscribing to that is a really important dynamic.
And we had a fun conversation earlier about, Christy, I'll get to you, Matt, in one sec,
Sure.
About, while we're on this topic, how do you deal with, if you have, I think everybody in this room will believe that they've had the most extreme of this experience, a disruptive member of your team, how do you manage that?
Yeah, a couple different ways. Slightly different ways if they're on my team, because then I can have a more candid conversation. If they're part of a broader team and kind of a cross-functional team, and we do pretty much everything cross-functionally in our world today, generally find something that person is super passionate about within the topic that we're working on or kind of the team, and kind of give them the ownership of that particular topic and kind of to run with it and see if that will kind of get them further kind of committed to the team and kind of working as a group like you were talking about, but kind of just like finding that thing to connect them with so that they take that energy, that disruptive energy, if I say, and channel into a much more effective way, a kind of approach and good energy. That's one approach.
Right. And Penny? Yeah.
Okay, wow. I might sound a bit ruthless in my answer.
Please,
so,
we need to inject some drama here.
We've all experienced in our careers, I'm sure, an individual who's proven enormously disruptive, who's not collaborative.
By the way, Matt is right here. He can hear everything you're saying.
Who's not a team member. That's awesome. But I have very little tolerance for that because I think it can be enormously damaging. And so, of course, you go through the normal course of, a couple of warnings and a couple of feedback sessions and, busting them on the spot when it happens. But if the behavior doesn't change, and for some individuals, it's so deeply rooted in their personality, it's almost impossible, then frankly, I get rid of them. I mean, right. It's like I can't expend the energy and the positivity of the team and what they can accomplish together if one person is continuously destroying that.
Right.
So you just can't let it go on.
So one thing, I'm not a marketer. Sounds like maybe a confession. I lead a technology organization at Mastercard. And really with what we try and do is we focus on trust. Top down, getting the right people in the right positions so they can do their job and do their job well. And then really gain an identity of the work that we're doing. Make sure that it's very clear and it's very compelling. And I find that when folks really on the technology side know that components and assets that they're building and delivering that's going to go out to market is tied to strategy, is tied to roadmaps, then you see some really good stuff and good magic happen.
But do you deal with, and this is where I was going to let you jump in
Sure.
for the first time, you must, because you're the guy who's trying to bring tech to these approaches, you must face resistance. There must be the Luddite type or the person the old school thinker. How do you deal with that?
There are times you deal with resistance where perhaps our group wants to go outside versus inside. And there's absolutely a time and a place for that. But what we try and do is engage the business, engage the marketers very closely so that we can anticipate their needs. So there's that, good conversation and dialogue going on with respect to, hey, what's coming? And maybe, just maybe, we're not the right group to deliver that capability because it's not really tied to a core competency. It might be more of a niche capability. Then it's okay, but you get that dialogue going on. Then what happens is you minimize the surprises, because I think we'd all agree surprises hardly ever turn out well.
And you were saying when we talked before that one of the main issues you face is actually people just not even coming to you first, treating tech as an afterthought or internally.
Yeah, Gary, the challenge with that, right, is as you build platforms, so think of a platform for marketers as something that combines registration, log on, campaign management, and some element of offers. So you've got these capabilities that come together, right? And you may go off, and if you go off and you, let's say, have conversations with another group and leave your in-house technology group out of it, then the challenge there is the technology group's inability to connect those dots, because you've got an overarching ecosystem that you're trying to engage with. So again, if you bring technology along with you, typically what happens is they have that understanding, and with understanding typically comes buy-in. And with that buy-in, you move away from, why are we doing this, to, we understand why we're doing this, tell us what we can do and how we can do it to meet your needs.
Krista, you were saying at Facebook, the way you do your team essentially integrates everybody into kind of one space, almost physically even as well.
Physically, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Totally. So we, and I think similar, hopefully, to some of what you guys do in the room here, everything we do is kind of based with our cross-functional team kind of right from the get-go. For product and engineering and our product marketing teams, those folks are always co-located. So we always have them physically together, just so they can be very, very kind of fast and effective and kind of pivot and iterate really, really quickly with each other. There are definitely, from a geography perspective, folks we have in regional offices. But even with those folks, from the time we kind of kick off a project, the first thing someone wants to do is say, what's our cross-functional team? Who needs to be on the cross-functional team? So that's like step two. So like step one is, we think we want to do this thing. We think we have an idea. The second thing that person does is says, okay, who's on my cross-functional team? I need them all kind of in a room, get them quickly together, whether it's via video conference or in person, but it's those two methods. And then there's sometimes a little bit more time up front to kind of like gel on an idea. And sometimes there's a discomfort there with people, because sometimes that takes a little bit longer. But once we get to that, then it's lock and execute.
Right. What about if it's, I want to ask you that too, but let's say if it is a real urgent project, time sensitive or whatever, how does that?
If it's the most important thing for that person to work on, then those people will put everything else aside, and that's encouraged. So doing less and focusing on fewer things is, I would say, a big, big priority for us.
Penny, how is it at Intel?
It's a little different at Intel from what Christy was saying, because we have 110,000 employees and they're distributed all over the world. So it's impossible to be physically co-located. We got a huge facility in Oregon and one in Santa Clara, and then of course in every major metro around the world. But I do completely agree with both Matt and Christy that cross-disciplinary teams need to be brought together from the outset. Everybody within Intel, it's a funny cultural attribute, but everybody, one of the most important currencies of being successful in Intel is being in the know. So everybody hates it when they're the slightest bit out of step with the progression of a key project or campaign or initiative.
Right.
So constant collaboration, constant conversation, constant email. And unfortunately, constant email. Krista and I were just saying in the speaker room earlier that that both of us encourage our teams to actually call us, like on this thing called your phone, because we all get how many thousands of emails every day, and nobody ever calls. So, but regardless of the method, constant communication and collaboration is key, whether it's virtually, by phone, whatever. It's completely culturally acceptable at Intel to dial in. for a call, for instance, because we're moving at the speed of light, and everybody's got to jump on as soon as they can.
You guys aren't all on Slack?
No.
Not yet. Not at the low technology firms of Facebook and Intel.
We have some other tools.
Yeah.
What are, like Facebook?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt, did you want to?
No, I was recently down at South by Southwest, and one of the reasons I went down there is I knew some of our digital marketers were going to be around, and I hung out with them, and I learned a ton. So a technologist, for me, one thing, and I don't know how many technologists are out here, it's helpful for me to reach out to the digital marketers and really understand what they're trying to do, because I think in my understanding and my team's understanding, then we're better positioned to support their needs. So, we had a gentleman on a panel talking about these new ads where you really don't talk about the product right until the very end, and I learned a ton in that 45 minutes. So definitely engagement is good there.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys deal with, okay, we talked about time since a quick project. How do you guys deal with keeping a team motivated for a long haul kind of project that might be, I don't know how long a long haul project would take for you guys. Maybe you can tell me that too. I mean,
I can give you an example of one. We just broke our new brand campaign, and it took a year to bring that together for all kinds of reasons that I won't bore people with. But to answer your question, I think it's really important to stop and celebrate accomplishments, milestones along the way. It's not about just the end destination. It's about continuously accomplishing something important that gets you to the end of the road. And it's so easy to forget that, because there's the next thing and the next thing, and we all have our to-do list, and we're all like marching like crazy people constantly, and you never really stop and kind of say, whoa, good job, and we need to just celebrate the fact that we just accomplished X. So let's all go out for a glass of wine tonight and, say thank you to each other. And if you do that along the way and also instill a sense of inspiration and what you really are aiming for, and people feel, involved, engaged, and important. That's another thing. I think, again, going back to the team spirit, everybody's got to matter. Everybody's got to have a role and make a difference.
Yeah. Well, we've all seen Ocean's 11. Everybody has to have their skill.
That is another example of teamwork. Yes.
Yeah, I like that team. I would say the only thing I would add to that, I think milestones are important. At times you can kind of swap people in and out of the team, or bring particular subject matter experts in for a particular kind of 2 or 3 week stretch, if that's kind of a part of the project that they could add to, and then have the energy kind of change a little bit from time to time.
Right.
And I think just, an occasional reminder of, here's why we're doing this, right? Here's what the end looks like, and here's the value that we're going to obtain when we do cross that finish line.
Well, that actually brings up my next question, because that's also something that comes up when there's organizational shifts or the change in approach or strategy, and that must also be a challenge because obviously it affects the marketing team and also the tech team when there is a sudden, maybe not so sudden, but might seem sudden to the employee, shift in strategy or approach. And how do you, we've all been in organizations that shift. Maybe it's a great sign of organizational health that everybody wants to be looped in at Intel and wants to be in the know, but maybe there are times when it's not so healthy and there's a disruption, change of CEO or whatever. And how do you work with a team to make sure that they stay on task and stay invested? Obviously, no change in CEO at Facebook.
Kristen and I both worked at Yahoo, so we know a few things about CEOs who change. Having gone through 6 CEOs.
And organizational and changes in organizational strategy. I mean, we could spend all day on Yahoo.
Yeah.
So please.
That was an interesting time and a whole altogether different story, which we won't go into. But that was probably the craziest amount of change I've personally ever seen. At Intel, it's a very thoughtful company. It's an engineering-driven company, and these guys are used to building fab facilities and improving performance year over year. And so, their engineering timelines, and there's a whole world order that the engineers speak that has kind of leached into the company overall, and even marketing. So what we hope to do is kind of stay the course strategically, because you accomplish nothing if you change your strategy every year. But other than staying the course strategically, day-to-day change is constant.
Right.
And it is just, and I think that's true for every technology company, perhaps every company in general. But every day you make 1,000 decisions, and every day, the tactical course changes slightly. And I think you just have to imbue that into the culture as something that you can't get upset about or react to, but it's just part of life, and you get over it, and move on. And you keep moving the ball forward, despite what level of change happens around you.
Right.
Yeah, I would say in our world, small tactical changes happen like every 5 minutes. So
right.
That's just kind of, if you're not up for that, you don't have a stomach for it, probably not the place for you. In terms of big strategic or tactical changes or changes in product direction, we often make changes in terms of where we're focusing our product investments. Generally, we're pretty open and transparent in terms of why we're making those changes. And kind of like getting people kind of understanding the strategic kind of change in terms of why we did some of those things, so they can kind of understand it, have the context and background that you talked about earlier, and then move on.
Right.
But yeah.
This is almost and do you want to jump in on that, Matt?
Just the key point of why, right? Explain to the teams
right.
why something's going on, because your overarching target may not have changed.
Right.
With Mastercard, 85% of the world's payments are still done in cash and check. Right, so that's our target. Eyes on the prize there, and then the tactics, as Penny and Chrissy mentioned, will change. And if they don't change, then you got to wonder, okay, well, what's going on, right? Change has to be there.
Right.
Yeah, I often say that you can't possibly over-communicate.
Right.
You may think that you've said something 1,000 times, and it feels that way, but it doesn't seem to matter. That you just can't communicate enough.
Well, you've obviously never worked for a British company. There is too much communication. There is such a thing. Any communication is too much communication. Christy,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a kind of meta question about not only does technology affect what you do in terms of marketing, but you're actually working for a platform that has changed how people look at marketing.
Yeah.
Sort of in a meta or recursive way, can we talk about how Facebook works affect and change how you've approached marketing, both at Facebook and in general?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of pervasive in pretty much everything we do and how we work together. So I joked earlier in terms of like the tools, but we use groups,
right,
like for everything.
But also for your external marketing approach too. What I mean is that's partly what I mean. But
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like internally, I'm trying to think if I want to focus on the external or internal first.
Well, they're both interesting, and we've been internal, so you can stay with internal, and then we'll go to external.
Okay. So from an internal perspective, we use the tools every day to communicate. It's what we're building, so we have a huge culture in terms of dog fooding and using our own products on a day-to-day basis. It's really hard to iterate and get better at what you're doing and talk about them and sell them,
right.
And help in terms of how other marketers and advertisers are using those products on a day-to-day basis, as well as the consumers.
Right.
So there's a huge culture in terms of use it. From a kind of external marketing perspective, we have, I'm sure, compared to like a lot of brands and companies in the world, probably relatively small kind of marketing teams in terms of consumer marketing. It's not where we spend most of our resources. Most of our resources are on the product and engineering side, building the products.
Are you saying Facebook doesn't have a social strategy?
We do, but it would probably be comparable to a lot of other companies' social strategies.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Has social also dramatically changed how you work and how your approach to
Within Intel Intel marketing?
Both within and externally, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, hopefully some of you in the room watched the Grammys this year. Social media played a huge role in amplifying the impact of Lady Gaga's performance, where we incorporated Intel technology into her David Bowie tribute. And while the exposure on air was certainly, noteworthy in of itself, It would have been a one and done had we not had what we call the long tail marketing impact of pushing it out aggressively on digital and social channels. And the biggest social media night of the year is the Grammys night.
Right.
And so the follow-on volume of conversations, of discussion, of exploration, of understanding what they just saw and what just happened was incredible. So for us, the cleanest word to use is amplification on a much bigger scale, all the way to China and back.
All the way to China.
All the way to China, without digging a hole.
I realize actually we have a little over 10 minutes left. I want to make sure that we get to audience questions. And do we have any now, or should I give you a minute or two to think of something? We have one here. Go ahead. Let's see if we can get you a mic. It's
right here.
So what are they doing to reach the U.S. Hispanic consumer who has a major purchasing power of, what did you say, $1 trillion?
Matt, I'm sure Mastercard has.
Well, we do. I mean, we have a huge commitment to diversity within Mastercard. I don't have the answer to your specific question, but I do know internally we have strong business resource groups, and in particular we have a Latin American business resource group, and there's a focus on business impact. Every business resource group we have, I think we have over 15. They're all asked to come up with business impact. So we have a lot of hackathons and different innovation events internally that then influence some of our product and marketing departments for sure.
Christy, your opinion?
Yeah, for us, our consumer products, like at default, kind of are global. So in terms of reaching to kind of the Hispanic market here in the U.S. and South America, strong markets for us. On the other side of it, we also make sure we're working with marketers and advertisers in those countries to reach to their consumers using our tools and products, more from an advertising tool perspective. So both sides of it, both internally as product and externally in terms of working with vendors.
Penny?
It's similar to Christy in that we are of course, a global technology company, and the Hispanic marketplace outside of the United States is very important to us, and in Latin America and other areas. Within the United States, diversity is a huge initiative for Intel, and it's been publicly espoused to the world at large. So it's a really important constituency, and there are programs directly targeting the Hispanic community in a manner that is culturally relevant, but still strategically consistent.
Well, this actually ties in with a question that I hadn't gotten to yet, which was diversity, which we brought up at the very beginning, I think, a little bit. How important is it to build a diverse team, not just in terms of perspectives of by ethnicity and gender, but also like different types of people, also young versus if you could get into that a little bit. I mean, and how much has that changed? I mean, I imagine some years ago a marketing team looked much more homogenous than it does now.
Well, the data is irrefutable. The data clearly illustrates that having a diverse team actually has a tremendous business impact to the positive, to the good. And in recognition of that, Intel is pushing hard to make sure that we meet our diversity goals. We've got dedicated HR leaders, very senior leaders, who are 100% tasked with helping the company get to that goal. And as a consequence, we've seen huge strides in the number of female leaders, and the ethnic representation, and including the gay community, especially important in the Bay Area and other major metropolitan cities. So it's a big deal for us, and the company is completely committed, starting with Brian Krzanek, our CEO.
And how does that, maybe Chris, go ahead and jump in on that, Chris.
Yeah, no, for us it's huge. So we're building products to resonate with users from around the world. The only way to effectively build products to actually resonate with people from different cultures and backgrounds and countries and languages is to actually know and have like firsthand experience. So for us, it's important everywhere from engineering to marketing to sales. So it's across the board, kind of a hugely core priority for us.
And our global talent team, they have a tremendous focus on women in technology, and underrepresented minorities. So that is something that is within their objectives and within their remit on a day-to-day basis.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? All right. Penny, you were talking about the data clearly shows that it does help. I mean, do you have any examples of that?
Oh yeah, you're going to ask me for a specific stat?
Yeah.
I'd be making it up because I just don't recall off the top of my head.
No. I don't have to ask you for a specific stat, but actually more of a sort of any case study or any sort of kind of previous experience where you've seen that it maybe worked in the other direction.
Oh, from a personal standpoint, I alluded to the fact that I grew up in the agency business. I ultimately, 20-some years, although I'm still only 42, and culminating in running Y&R San Francisco, and I watched it firsthand in that the best ideas, and especially when you're pitching new clients, and it's all about the veracity of your creative ideas and how relevant they are to meeting the business challenge, inevitably, the best way to get to the winning ideas was to vet them through the lens of multiple perspectives. And multiple perspectives means, people of every flavor and stripe and every age and every ethnic, group, men, women alike. I mean, I used to say, I really don't care if you're male or female or green or purple or, well, I don't care. It's just like, it's about getting to the best ideas. And you can't do that if you have a too homogenous a view. Right.
What about in recruiting people and how they're changing? So when I was talking about diversity, it's not just diversity of by ethnicity or gender, but also perspective and maybe less career-oriented younger people coming in. I mean, does that affect who you're hiring?
Oh, yeah.
I think for us, like we look at diversity right from the first level of recruiting. So in terms of bringing folks in for a position, we look at kind of like a broad spectrum in terms of making sure we have a diversity at the kind of like initial interview level. Right. So that as people are coming in, we are looking at people who have slightly different backgrounds that could be kind of interesting in that particular role, and it's more about is that person do they have kind of the background, the thought, the knowledge, the smarts to kind of push the business in a different direction. So that's core for us at the beginning. But it comes right from the recruiting process and our recruiting teams and making sure we are looking at a really diverse set of candidates for every job.
Right.
And one challenge we have at Mastercard is just selling who we are and ensuring that experienced hires or students understand the type of company that we are and that we're not. We're not a credit card company, we're a technology company. And it's always a neat experience when you go in and talk with students in the classroom or at career fairs or whatnot, and you have that quick conversation with them and their eyes kind of light up. Oh, that's I didn't realize that. And then you can drill a little bit deeper.
One more chance to see if anybody from the audience. Oh, okay. Well, we have two questions. All right. Well, if we're quick, we'll do both. Otherwise, I'm going to have a last question. I'm going to try and get answers out of them about Yahoo.
Questions for the young lady at Facebook?
Yeah.
Do you feel that your efforts of diversity are working? Because I read several articles, and it's not just Facebook, but a lot of tech companies, Silicon Valley giants, where it's diversity somewhere between 2 and 4% of your workforce, or the hiring practice, I don't know. So can you just define diversity for me? Because
yeah, sure. So I don't have the exact numbers in terms of our diversity, but if we look at diversity, it's diversity of cultures and backgrounds. It's diversity of males and females, as well as kind of ages. So it's all of the different definitions. We are, I don't know the exact number, but we definitely have a pretty diverse workforce. If I were to take you either to our office here in New York or Menlo, I think people would be surprised in terms of the ranges of ages and the number of women in engineering and a whole bunch of those other things. It's pretty impressive.
And over there.
And thank you for calling me young. That was awesome.
Hi. So I'm just wondering, there is a like a cultural value at Facebook that I've been really interested in, just focusing on impact. And it seems to go back to what you're talking about, where it's, you know, picking up the phone and, you know, kind of streamlining lining other things that you do so that you have sort of time to focus on that impact. I guess I'm wondering for anybody, how do you have advice for streamlining that and for how to focus on making that impact when you have so many other things, so many emails coming in, even with the phone calls?
I have a couple little tips or tricks I'm happy to just share. One is I work with my team specifically on kind of either 90 or 100-day plans. It depends what I feel like that particular day. But kind of look at, like, I think of them as 100-day journeys, which is kind of helps me and make it a little more fun. And look at what's the business impact we want to try and accomplish when we get to that 100-day plan. We get to that day 100. What's that thing we want to be able to put like that flag in the ground and go, we did that thing. And then look at what are the tactics, how do you spend your time every single day to get closer to where that flag is going to go in, and look at the things that can just shed away that aren't actually going to help you get there. That's busy work. Part of it comes down to, you talked about earlier, is trust, is not necessarily going to every meeting. Saying, you know what? You're my coworker. I trust you to do that meeting. If there's anything that you need to like talk to me about, come back to me, but I trust you to cover us for our team. The other one I do, it seems kind of crazy, is I actually have myself and my team block off time during the day where we don't do emails, we don't do meetings, we just work.
What?
Because you'd be surprised at how much time, and if you're doing email, dedicate an hour, half an hour to just doing your email.
That's correct.
But it shouldn't be like it shouldn't be a side task. So I would encourage everyone to try, like, spend an hour a day where you're just working for 1 hour a day. You put everything else aside, hide yourself, run to another building, run to another room, I don't know, go to a coffee shop, and just work for 1 hour, and you'd be amazed at what you can get done at the end of the week.
Well, in the course of our days, we all find ourselves juggling. I think everyone in this room could say, you're juggling, right? And you're going to drop a ball, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it's that rubber ball that comes back up and you grab it later versus the glass ball that drops and shatters. So just know that you're going to drop balls in the course of, you know, your day, your week, your month. And then there's going to be that one occasion where you drop the ball, you thought it was a rubber, but your boss is like, no, that was a glass one. And, well, then you just deal with it.
Yeah.
And if you have impulse control issues, just hypothetically, there is software that would block you out of surfing the internet and using email, and that allow you to work. Hypothetically speaking, that exists. I think we're running out of time. I was going to ask you for all of the dirty secrets in Yahoo, but you're going to have to come back for another conference all about Yahoo's dark history. Thank you so much, all three of you, for this great
awesome.
panel.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Take